Hello, everyone, and welcome to a series of pre-event speaker interviews in the run-up to our World Hydrogen North America Congress. This is taking place in Houston this year from the 31st of March to the 2nd of April. My name is Dominic Coyne. I'm the program director, and I'm pleased to welcome today Kelly Ratchinsky. Kelly is a leader in clean transportation and sustainability. Before joining CALSTART, Kelly gained experience as a field engineer in both fossil fuel extraction and offshore wind. She also worked as a project manager for Innovation Norway, focusing on zero-emission transportation and smart cities, with a particular emphasis on the adoption of autonomous vehicles in California. Kelly is a former board member at Women in Cleantech and Sustainability, where she helped grow the network to 7,000 members across 13 countries. She holds a master's in mechanical engineering, specializing in underwater robotics. So Kelly, you have a very unique and colorful experience. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Dominic. It's a pleasure to be here with your audience, and I'm looking forward to attending in Houston at the end of March. For myself, the problem I'm mostly working on these days is air pollution, and I serve as a technical project manager for a nonprofit called CALSTART that focuses on changing transportation for good and supporting more zero-emission vehicles to come into the marketplace. And that includes, of course, hydrogen infrastructure, as well as Class 8 tractors, Class 2 and above. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, I'm always keen to hear from people who work in the air quality space. Coming from a big city myself, I think it's a really important area. Would you be able to give the audience a bit more on your background and your current aims of your current work and the hydrogen space in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So from where I sit, CalSTART has been operating for over 30 years in the zero-emission vehicle space, and I serve as a technical subject matter expert on hydrogen for their various programs that we run on behalf of state agencies. So for example, in the state of California, the Energy Commission puts $250 million plus into infrastructure in the state of California, as well as the California Air Resources Board having vehicle voucher programs such as HVIP. And then lastly, I'll mention another program that I have the good fortune to represent on occasion is our CORE program, CORE, which are the off-road vehicles. So also funding in the state of California going into cargo handling equipment, as well as, different cranes or different kinds of equipment found at the ports. So really looking ahead to be in Houston and to have more dialogue with stakeholders in any of those spheres that are looking for funding. They should definitely come and talk to me and to my CalSTART colleagues.
Okay, great. And you're in a bit of a unique position because you're looking at all different types of vehicles and ways that we're going to build out the hydrogen network. Kelly's, for the audience's benefit, is going to be moderating our panel, looking specifically at how we fuel the future and the sourcing and refueling infrastructure behind that. Kelly, do you have any ideas that you're hoping to pull out of that panel, or questions that you think the industry is really looking for answers for in terms of building out this infrastructure and using hydrogen transport in the way that we need to?
I think the largest crux, in my opinion, is the cost of hydrogen at the pump. And there's a few different ways to target this. When we look at the cost to generate hydrogen via electrolysis, the electricity is the highest cost there. And also when we think about the distance of transporting hydrogen to a dispenser, that distance is really a killer on the price. And so I think from our panelists, what I'll be curious to hear is what kind of innovative infrastructure they're looking for, as well as, higher efficiencies on electrolyzers, on fuel cells, And also on carbon capture, we saw 45V come down the line, seems favorable to natural gas to a certain extent, whereby you can be funded for carbon capture equipment under certain 45V boundary conditions. So I think that was a really smart move in order to sort of support on the policy side as well. Low carbon hydrogen generation versus just complete zero emission.
Yeah. And do you think there's enough, for want of a better word, networking, or are people talking to each other enough about the solutions that they're bringing in terms of infrastructure? Is enough of this connecting up at the moment, or is that another problem that needs to be met?
I think that's a great question. And top of mind, there's two pieces to this puzzle that I think are going in a positive direction. The federal hydrogen hubs, of which Houston is an awardee, California as well. There's 7 altogether. So these hydrogen hubs are all talking to each other at a national level, is my understanding. For example, Arches does talk to the Midwest as well as the Texans. And CalSTART is focused as well on corridor work. So looking at I-95 on the East Coast, we have a project where we actually are responsible for bringing stakeholders together to look at a corridor north-south there. Looking ahead to obviously the corridor between Houston and California is going to be of prime importance, not only connecting the federal hydrogen hubs, but in a way that it's already been a main thoroughfare for the hydrogen conversation.
Yeah. So we've mentioned 2 potential problematic areas there. You said the cost at the pump. It's also ensuring that everyone's talking to each other and we're not doubling up on efforts. Are there any other barriers to the market that you're seeing in terms of scaling hydrogen at the moment?
I think when I think about the barriers, it falls into a few different buckets. In my day job, I focus on infrastructure and tangentially vehicles. So the total cost of ownership of a fuel cell electric tractor is quite high and not comparable to diesel at this point in time. So that's another key factor, is the need for fleets or for terminal operators to buy something that's new where they could buy something used. So there's some price challenges there where ideally state and federal government can be supporting with cost coverage up to a certain amount.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got one final question for you, Kelly. Bit more of a controversial one. And so, taking into account that you've worked across quite a few sectors, everything from fossil fuel extraction to offshore wind, you're now in zero emission transportation, with hydrogen often being touted as a key solution for decarbonizing transport. Do you believe the hydrogen industry is truly ready to scale, or is it being overhyped as a silver bullet for all our transportation needs?
That's a great question. And I'll share that I think hydrogen is a great complement to existing solutions that are already in operation. So hydrogen tractors are perhaps at a TRL of 7 on their way to a technology readiness level of 8, whereas like a BEV Class 8 tractor is already at a TRL of 8. But I would say that hydrogen has that longer distance, heavier load complement to where battery electrics need to stay under 200-mile range for goods movement in a lot of cases. So I think that there's room for all of these solutions to work together. Diesel still has the longest range. And I think we should look to the oil and gas market. Present day, 90% of hydrogen in the US is generated by natural gas steam methane reforming. So supporting and leveraging oil and gas ability to scale will support the hydrogen market to scale. Now, they need someone to sell the hydrogen to, and ideally someone to sell the carbon to as well, if we're going to apply carbon capture onto SMR to make them more lower carbon than they already are. So my response is, I think we should, leverage oil and gas experience to scale the hydrogen marketplace as best that we can in the coming years.
Absolutely, it's a good point to mention, and we're going to be trying to cover that in the event as well. We've got another panel looking at how much existing infrastructure we could be using, certainly in the regions that are more advantaged with that, Texas being an obvious one. But Kelly, thank you so much for your answers. We appreciate your opinions. Audience, for those of you wanting to hear more from Kelly, Kelly's going to be speaking on the 1st of April on our infrastructure panel. So please come down and see us. Don't forget to look at the other interviews that we've got with some of the other speakers and check out the website for the full list of content and speakers. But Kelly, thank you once again for joining us. Do you have any closing remarks?
My pleasure. I'm really looking forward to being in Houston, and especially with connecting with stakeholders that are building infrastructure down there, with the ports for drayage or otherwise freestanding for PTAs, public transit authorities, or for medium heavy duty trucks. So please reach out. Thank you.
All right, you heard it here. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you once again, Kelly, for joining us, and we'll see you all in Houston.